Okay, so anytime you're drawing something, whether it is a cartoon, the Eiffel Tower, a vase of flowers, you really need to look at that object or person or thing or place, whether you can look at it in front of you, like set up as a still life, actually arranging the objects and having them on the table across from you, or whether you search a picture of the Eiffel Tower in the internet and draw it while looking at that picture, or printing it out, or something you found in a magazine. If you're drawing from memory, you're really pulling these fuzzy memories of the really specific details, and that usually causes people to get those little details wrong. So I'm going to draw some paint bottles that I have in front of me, and I'll show you what that setup is on my desk here. Okay, if I look at my desk right now, I am going to be drawing those two white bottles. There's one tall skinny bottle and one is a shorter jar that says Liquitex on it. Okay, so when you're drawing something, I'm going to start by just not even drawing the bottles that I just showed you, but by showing you the 3 different phases that a drawing will go through. So you're going to start with your gesture lines, which are basically the basic shapes that you see in an object. So your gesture lines are going to move really quickly, and notice that when I'm moving, I have my wrist locked. Okay, and then I'm moving my whole arm pretty quickly. Okay, when you're doing this, you're going to be drawing lots of circles, triangles, and basically lots of circles and triangles, maybe some rectangles or squares. That should be it. Okay, so a gesture line is going to be like this. And you're going to go around a few times because this is where you're just trying to get the basic shape. So if I was doing a circle, I would go around and around and around until I think that I have a pretty rounded, even circle. But notice I did it really lightly, so that eventually I can come back and I can erase these lines. So that's your gesture. The next thing you're going to move to is sketching. So I'm going to do a gesture circle first, just so I know that's what I had done first time. So, and then I'm going to sketch. So I have a lot of lines in here that are not, like if I look at these lines in here, that's definitely not the circle. So when I'm sketching, I'm going to be going darker, and I'm going to be going over only the shape that I want to keep. Okay, so I'm going to go dark, and here, it might be subtle that you can't really tell, but I am really, now I'm moving at my wrist. So I'm doing lots of short, quick lines. It really helps me to turn my page. So, a lot of times when I see people and students that draw, if they haven't learned this method, a lot of students start out by sketching and they skip those gesture lines. That's why maybe you have trouble with making something look like it actually looks, or it kind of looks like the object or person, but it looks a little bit off. That's why, because you're not getting those basic shapes down. Okay, so that's your sketching. And then the last thing, now I'm going to do my gesture, do my sketch. The last step is kind of optional. If this is a practice copy, you really don't have to do the last step. Personal preference. Okay. So the last step is going to be your contour lines. And contour lines, that's when you trace over something with Sharpie, or you outline it in a solid color. That's going to be a smooth, continuous line that looks nice and even on top of the sketching. Okay, so I really don't do this with my drawings, not in Sharpie, but you would outline it with a smooth, even line. Now you need to really make sure that when you stop a line and start a new line, that you pick it up. I would start a little bit further back when that line left off, so that it's a seamless overlap. Now, if you look in a cartoon, okay, so if you were to examine SpongeBob up close, you will see that he has a contour line, but he's not going to be outlined in black. Most cartoons are not going to be outlined in black. So, for example, if you looked at SpongeBob up close, he's outlined in like an olive green. Okay, so a lot of times it's good to choose a color that is very similar to the color that the object is. So if you looked on the color wheel, if I had, SpongeBob is yellow, and they outline him in green. Yellow and green are right next to each other on the color wheel. So those two colors are really going to go well together. Even though, the green is darker than the yellow, so that's going to still be a darker color without being black, which is going to really be distracting. So try not to outline things in black. Alright, so there's your gesture, sketch, and contour. Now I'm going to switch over and I'm just going to go through drawing my two paint bottles in front of me without talking. But now you know what I'm doing, so you can look for those steps that I told you about. Now when I get to the lid here and this top, these are all the same bottle, but you're going to see that I'm going to do a circle for this top rim here, a really skinny circle that looks like a pancake. That's called an ellipse. Okay, so anytime we see something that from above looks like a full circle, but we're looking at it from an angle, you're going to draw an ellipse. Okay, now the bottom is a full circle. Of course, we can't see it like we see the top, but we know that that's a rounded edge of a full circle. So I'll still draw that ellipse, but I'm going to erase part of it because it's not a clear container. Okay, so I'm going to go through and I'm going to draw these two bottles that are overlapping without talking, just so you can get an idea of how to draw something realistic. Okay, so there's my gesture lines, and one thing I didn't talk about was the table, or which will be your horizon line. So whether it's the spot where it looks like the road disappears, or the edge of a table or a coffee table, that line is always going to be somewhere above the very bottom of an object. If you put that line right below something, like right there, that means that you're looking at it, like your eye level is the same as the edge of the table. That means you're a very, very short person. So, I know some of us are short, but we're not that short that our eyes are looking right at the very side of the table. So that line's going to go back on the edge here. If I had a really long table, like, the Pilgrims ate at Thanksgiving, then that line might be somewhere way back here. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm at a desk, so it's got a pretty short back to it, so my line is right about there. Okay, so now I'm going to go and I'm going to sketch, and I'm going to add some other details, like where the lid is on my bottle. So it's going to kind of have an edge here that turns in and then comes back down. There's a cap up here, a flip cap, so maybe I'll see a little seam in there. All these little things that go beyond the basic shape. And maybe then I'll start to erase some of these overlapping lines that are converging. Alright, now this is a special eraser that you'll see in some of your, in like the drawing crate with all the different supplies. So this is a kneaded eraser, and it's almost like putty. You can stretch it out and then ball it back up. So that's good for a few different reasons. You can start fresh with a clean eraser. If this gets all gray from pencil, I can just stretch it out and ball it back up. You can also use this to kind of get into really small areas by making yourself a little point. Okay, and this is also good for if you have something that's really dark and you're just trying to lighten up a certain area. You can touch it to your paper and just lighten up that area. So even if you don't want to erase something completely, you just want to lighten it up, you can use this and kind of smudge it. So that's the kind of eraser you'll see me using now, just because that's the closest one to me that I can find right now. Okay, now the last thing you want to think about is a shadow. So I'm going to show you the still life again. My light is coming from over here. So I have a shadow coming out on the other side of these bottles, and it's kind of a fuzzy, it's not a clear cut oval or circle or anything, and it's got a very soft edge. So my shadow is going to come out from this side of the bottle. It's kind of coming in from that corner, just a little bit of it is in the front, and it's got an angle towards the back. And if I'm looking at the object, I can see that the edge of the shadow hits somewhere near this stripe. So I'm going to start my curved line there and come back this way. And it's like a curved shape like this. So I'm just going to shade that in. Kind of a medium gray, because you can always go darker, but it's hard to go from darker to lighter. And there's not going to be a shadow that I can see from my taller bottle, because we just can't see it from this angle. There is a shadow there, but it's just behind this bottle. Now here's where you want to get from your drawing bucket with the tools. There's going to be a little stubby, it's like a rolled up piece of paper, kind of shaped with a point. And that's something you can use to smudge your pencil. Okay, I don't think I have one nearby, but basically you'll use that stub and you can kind of smear out. Now you can smudge with your finger as well, but it's just not going to be, that tool is made for smudging. So I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter shade around that shape that I had drawn, just to let it kind of fade out. I don't want to see pencil lines here, and I can smudge it with my finger. That looks a little better, more natural of a shadow. I don't want it to look like pencil, this part. I want it to look, like an actual shadow. So, that would pretty much complete your drawing. So I would like you guys to set up an actual still life in front of you. If you're planning to draw some objects. If you're going to go cartoon route, I'm going to post a separate video on drawing cartoons. But I'll probably skip the gesture, sketch, contour, since you already know that from this video, and I'll go right into using those methods for drawing a cartoon. So look out for that video.